Hello to everyone.
I don't know. Oh,
Hello to everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
yes.
All right. We've got about 5 or so people in the room right now, so let's start with Bruce. Bruce, can you hear me? What's up tonight?
Ben?
Bruce has muted himself. All right, Bruce, can you hear me?
Got it.
Yeah, what have you got? Yeah, if anybody would like to turn their cameras on, they can use the GoToMeeting control panel and say share their webcam. You don't have to, but if you'd like to, that's fine. Bruce is up first. What have you got, Bruce?
Nothing too much. I'm just listening now.
Okay, all right, we'll move on. I've got Daryl next. Daryl, what have you got this evening? Questions?
I spent almost half a day trying to get my printer to work back today. I don't know what happened, but maybe one of the updates that I did messed it up. It's finally back, it's running. And, I think it messed up the internet. It's working, so I'm happy. So.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing you. You said you had some printer problems today. You must have, did you go up to Yosemite? Is that what happened? You updated to Yosemite and printers fell off, or what?
Yeah, I have an 8600. Not to get 8600.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And it just dropped off. It dropped off the network. It dropped off the internet. It took about half a day to get it.
Oh man, well I'm sorry to hear that. That's definitely a potential problem. Anytime Apple updates their operating system, or Windows for that matter, really, anytime one of these computer manufacturers updates their operating system, the printer manufacturers have to run to try to get these drivers out. And for older printers, and that 8600, that HP 8600 is not an older printer, but for some older printers, the printer manufacturers won't even write the drivers anymore. They'll just say, you know what, that printer's 5 years old or 4 years old. We're not going to pay somebody to write a driver for it. They just need to go out and buy a new one. But that HP 8600 should have had a Yosemite compatible print driver. So just to kind of touch base on this, because this is a common problem that a lot of people have. If you do update the operating system and your printers have fallen off, one of the things that you can try to do is go into System Preferences, go to Printers and Scanners, because you've gone to Yosemite. And in that, you can see the printers that you have listed. The easiest way to troubleshoot a printer, honestly, is to delete that printer. So I might hit the minus key, and it's going to take it off. Are you sure you want to delete it? Yes, I do. And now that printer's gone. Now I need to re-add the printer again. So I hit the plus sign, and hopefully it will request the right driver down from the internet. Always check in the system updates to see if there's an HP print driver update that comes out. The other thing that you can do, Daryl, is to do a right click in this same area. If you're looking at my screen, right click and you have a reset printing system command right there that you can choose. I know you probably know most of this, Daryl. I'm just answering this in general for other people.
Did all that. I rebooted the network, I reset the cache, like you said. Went through a lot of it. Kept working. Finally, about 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Well, I'm glad you got it. I'm glad you troubleshot it. Anything else that I might be able to help you with? You solved your own problem.
I do. I like to listen. If I think of something, I'll let you know.
Okay, and your audio connection's really rough here, Daryl, so if anything you can do to help that out. Let's jump up to Bridget. Bridget, what have you got this evening? What can I help you with? Bridget's muted at the moment. Bridget's muted herself. We'll come back to Bridget in a second. Kathleen, what have you got? Hey, Kathleen, can you hear us? Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay,
now.
all right,
I'm here.
Kathleen, you can hear us? What have you got this evening, Kathleen?
I'm just listening. This is my first time.
All right. First time caller, long time listener.
Right.
All right, let's move
I was able
on.
to get off on mute.
Oh, okay, that's Bridget. Bridget, what have you got for us tonight?
I was trying, we had done the backup of my previous computer.
Yeah,
Of all the pictures and things onto my hard drive, or like the external hard drive.
yeah.
And one of the little flip video things that I had that was that's being recorded or placed on there, is not allowing me, it's saying that I have an outdated version of
Flip for Mac. Flip for Mac.
It's not compatible.
I see. Yeah, that's one of the things that Yosemite does. Yosemite kills the latest version of Flip for Mac. Flip for Mac, for those of you who don't know, is a tool that's out on the internet by a company called Telestream, and I believe they might have been bought by Microsoft if I remember correctly. But Flip for Mac, what it does is it gives your Mac the ability to view Windows video files, WMV files, things like that. So people will send you a video file that's in a Windows format, and us Mac users, we can't use it. So if you download Flip for Mac, then that's the little conversion tool that allows us to see that video. And that conversion tool is really a plugin that runs inside QuickTime. If you update to Yosemite, then Flip for Mac is killed. Let's go to see if Flip for Mac has come out with a Yosemite update. And don't pay for Flip for Mac, by the way. There's really not a major reason to man, it looks like they've gone to, this used to be free. And it looks...
I actually did the $5.95 earlier today.
Oh, you paid for it?
And it didn't work. It didn't work.
Yeah, I doubt that it's, it says up here, supports 10.7 and later, but I bet that they're not ready on 10.10. And this goes back to something that I talk about all the time to people. It's never a good idea to update right when the operating system comes out, and iOS for that matter. So if we look, say for instance, on the phone, and you can look at my phone here, if I go into General and then I go to About, you will see that the version of the software is 8.1. Well, many of us had problems when we downloaded 8.0.1 or 8.0.2, so it's never a good idea to download a piece of software until the second number changes. So if you look at your computer, because these are the types of things that happen. If you look at your computer, you're using Yosemite, which is 10.10, but in about let me go to About this Mac. In about, let's see, here it is, 10.10. In about a month, there's going to be 10.10.1. And that's usually when most of the little bugs like this, little problems, are fixed. So all of us who've downloaded 10.10.0 are in a way kind of beta testers. You should never, if you have a business critical machine, you should never download Yosemite. For anybody that I've seen today or the last couple of weeks, I carry my laptop with me. That's my main machine that I have to troubleshoot problems. I do not have Yosemite on that because that's my business machine. This is the machine that I'm using now is a sort of just a test machine. So far we've heard 2 problems tonight based on people updating to Yosemite probably a little soon. But to kind of go back and answer, or to help you out, Bridget, if you want to play these videos in the future, don't worry about necessarily needing Flip for Mac. You can get VLC. Have you played around with VLC, Bridget?
No, I don't even know what that is.
It's free, and it's the Swiss Army knife of video players. Just do a Google search for VLC, and you'll see this page. Okay. The icon is a little road sign thing, whatever, and you download it, and this thing will play almost every single type of video format that there is. I just got a text, or I just got a question that says, Scotty, I was under the assumption that you did not recommend updating to Yosemite. Yes, that is true. I don't recommend doing any update of the operating system until it has gone through one major refined iteration. For anybody listening, I'm talking really quick. I always record this and I go back, and you can catch it. If I go through your answer too fast, you can always get back to it at my website under previous town halls if I go a little bit too quick. But I lost my train of thought, so let's just keep moving. We've got Joanne on the line. Joanne, what can I help you with tonight?
Thank you.
Just curious, whenever I update, Scotty, on the iMac, which is upstairs, as you recall, when I'm updating, it always asks me for an iCloud password.
Yes.
Which I do not have. And I can never go any further because I don't have an iCloud password. And finally, it will ask me for my Apple ID. And then I can go on.
Okay.
how do I know what my iCloud password is? And the laptop never asks me that.
Okay, so your iCloud password, and Joanne, you're an old user here, so you might hear me say some things that you've heard me repeat in the past, but I'm going to talk in general to everybody. You have two relationships with Apple. You have a relationship based on money, and you have a relationship based on data. And the great example of that is to look on the phone for this. So if we go over to the phone, if my phone will stop acting crazy, let me get it here. I go into settings, and I've got in settings two IDs here. All right, it's going to catch up there. I have an iCloud ID and I have a money ID. Now the money ID, and I know this is not answering your question, I'm building to answer the question in a second. Let me get CNN off the board here. My money ID, the Apple ID that I use to purchase things, in my case, is sales@mac.com. My iCloud ID, the ID that I use to sync my pictures across devices, my contacts, my calendars, my GPS information, that's my iCloud ID, also known as an Apple ID, and in my case, it happens to be sales@mac.com. In my case, they're the same. So if you wanted to find out what your Apple ID is, why don't you go to your phone, go to settings.
I know that. I'm trying to find out the iCloud ID.
Go to your phone and select iCloud. Now, wherever you're signed into iCloud, and that email address at the top, that's the email address that you should be signed into in all your devices. So another way you could do it is on your computer. You go to System Preferences, and what I'm about to show you should match. I'm waiting for my System Preferences to open. I go to iCloud, and remember on the phone, I'm signed into sales@mac.com. So in System Preferences, I select iCloud. I'm waiting for my iCloud to load up, and look, there it is. Sales@Mac, or in this case at me.com, but it's the same thing. Me and Mac are the same. If I want to look at account details, I can click on account details and it'll give me the email address again, I believe. Yeah, right there. Sales@Mac.com or sales@me.com. So
are you saying the two passwords are the same? Because when it asks for the iCloud password and I put my Apple ID in there, it does not accept it.
Well, your Apple ID is not a password. Your Apple ID is most likely an email address. So
No, I'm sorry. My Apple ID password. When I put that in, it does not work when they're asking for my iCloud password.
So it might be that some people sign in to Apple IDs. Some people use different Apple IDs for their purchasing account and for their iCloud account. Like, let's say, if I had a child, my child might purchase as me, but they're going to have a different iCloud account because I don't want them to have my contacts and my calendars necessarily. So another way to test this out, two things you can do. If you want to test, well, what really is my Apple ID, you can go to iCloud.com and type in the email address that you think is your Apple ID and the password that you think is your password. And if it was created after 2010, it's going to have a capital letter and a number, and it's going to be at least 8 letters long. And this is a great place, iCloud.com, to test out what your Apple ID is and what your password is. If it works here, it works. Go ahead.
I know what my Apple ID and my Apple password are.
Mm-hmm.
What they want is my iCloud password. And when I put in my Apple ID password, it does not take it. But I only have the one address and the one password.
So the first thing you need to make sure you do is you need to make sure, because most of the time, I'll guarantee you this is human error. What you need to do is make sure that you're using the same Apple ID for iCloud and money. And the way to do that is to look on your phone and to make sure that the one under iTunes and App Store is the same in your case as the one under iCloud. All right?
Okay.
It's possible that you're signed into Joanne at Gmail versus Joanne at Yahoo. That's possible. I'm not saying that's the case, but that's a possibility. So they're probably asking you for, and by the way, an iCloud ID is an Apple ID. It is an Apple ID.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that's just, whenever I say this, and I've said this to, I'm sure somebody listening here today, I always start this speech off the same way. You have two relationships with Apple, one based on money and one based on data. The one based on money is called, and listen to this carefully, the one based on money is called an Apple ID. The one based on data is called an Apple ID. Now they might not be the same ones, and this is, and Joanne, I make a living dealing with this because this is so complicated and so confusing to people. This is really a big part of my day is going through and helping people. And what I have found with iCloud and Apple IDs, and what I have found very often is the case, is that somebody has created an Apple ID, especially kids. They created an Apple ID and they've forgotten about it. So when it comes time to update your apps, and you go down into the update area wherever the App Store is and you run your updates, you might be prompted for an Apple ID password and you put it in and it's not right. And you put it in again and it's not right and you're frustrated, so you call me. And then I look it up and I say, hey, were you ever Joanne at gmail.com? And you would say, no, I was never that. And then we look up in the information and we can see that that app was bought under a completely different ID. So, which is you, but you just forgot about it. And I'm not saying that's what happened here in this case, but it sounds like you might be signed into your data relationship and your money relationship possibly differently. And this could be in multiple devices. You could sign in on a computer, you could sign in on a phone, you could sign in on your other computer, you could sign in on the iPad. So that's about 8 places that you have potential of messing up.
And the only place I have a problem is on the iMac.
Then you need to make sure you know which iCloud ID it's asking you for, the password to it. And then, see, that's the thing. It'll ask you a password, but it should automatically show you the email address that it's asking for.
Okay.
And this is the other thing that complicates things. We're not talking about, and I know you know this, but I just say this to other people listening. We're not talking about email passwords. We're talking about passwords that are Apple ID passwords that are based on email addresses. So if this were sales@gmail.com, I'm not trying to put in my Google password. I'm putting in my Apple password that Apple knows. So it gets really even more complicated than that. But to make sure that you're on the right track, you can always go to appleid.apple.com and test your passwords there. If you're able to go to Manage ID, and if you're able to log into your Apple ID here, then that is absolutely the right password. But you may be putting the wrong email address in. I know.
I only have the one.
Yeah.
And then when I do it on the laptop, they want the administrator password, which is actually the password I use to log in.
Yes. Right, and Apple's not asking for that. Something that you've done is asking for that. Something that you have initiated. Maybe you're installing software, or maybe you're Daryl and you've installed another print driver or something like that. So that's where it's going to ask for your admin password. And if you ever want to test out, just for people listening, that you want to make sure you know what your admin password is, because I'll tell you, every day I deal with people that don't know they don't know any passwords. People don't know passwords. We don't write them down. So if you go to System Preferences, an easy way to figure out what your password is, go to System Preferences, go to Users and Groups, and you'll see a lock in the bottom left-hand corner. If you select that lock, it's going to ask you what your admin password is, and that's the password for your computer. Now, if you get it wrong 3 times in a row, if you were smart, it would set up a hint. So there's my hint for my password. Oh, now I know what it is. Now I remember. And then you put it in. That has nothing to do with Apple. Apple doesn't know that password. They don't want to know that password. All right? All right?
Thank you.
I know that's a long-winded answer, but that's kind of what I do sometimes. I'm going to keep jumping around. I'm going to go to Kathleen. Did we talk yet, Kathleen?
Yes, this whole thing you were talking about, I have been experiencing also.
In terms of password issues?
Passwords, yes.
Yeah.
So I have to go back and get it all straightened out.
I'll tell you.
Cloud versus the iTunes.
Yeah. I deal a lot of times, this will help people understand a little bit, maybe anyway. And I got a question here from Bruce saying, is there a safe way to store your IDs and your passwords? There are a couple of pieces of software out there that some of my clients use and they enjoy it a lot. I don't recommend it, and I'll tell you why, but and I'll tell you how I do mine, saving passwords. Couple of pieces of software that a lot of people have had a lot of success with. One is called LastPass, and the other one is called 1Password. These are available. They're pretty expensive. They're in the $40 range, but they sync all your passwords. Now, the way that both of those, and then there's another one, something, I think it's called Passlane, or something with the word lane, and it's becoming really popular now. Walt Mossberg is giving it thumbs up, and so lots of people read Walt Mossberg in the New York Times, and they'll use that from time to time, so that's okay. But here's the problem with them. You invest in one of these pieces of software, $40, and you put all your passwords into that. And what the concept is that these programs will create a password for you. ZKX, exclamation point, W, @ dollar sign, L, right? And it will say, all you need to do is create one password. And that will be the master password that opens up this program, and we'll do all the work on the back end. And if you forget that password, you're screwed. And I deal with a lot of people that forget that password. Now, you already have something built into your computer called Keychain. And Keychain is a program that Apple has installed on your computer. It's already there. It keeps up with maybe 75% of your passwords. So if you go to a website that requires a password, I was with somebody today and they were on a design website and they'd created an account at this design website. And when you do that, it will save it into Keychain, and through iCloud, of course you have to go through all the lawyer hoops to agree to do this, but if you're in your iCloud settings, I go to settings and I go down to iCloud, you have the ability here, right down there, Keychain. That will store those passwords. So when I go to that design website on my phone, the password automatically fills in. That's awesome. One of the things that I'd never recommend that people do, at least not right now, is that if you go to a website that requires a username and a password, Safari will say, hey, we'll create one for you, ZLK dollar sign, @ exclamation point, LQ. I never suggest people create or allow those passwords. But I'd rather you create your own. And when you do, create a password that is not a word in the dictionary followed by 4 numbers or 3 numbers or 2 numbers. Don't let your password be butterfly 1968. Because bad guys can figure out those types of passwords very easily through a technique called brute force attacking. But what I do is I have an Excel spreadsheet. And that Excel spreadsheet is 4 columns long. All right, many rows, but it's only 4 columns long. And my columns are, what is the account? What is the username? What is the password? And what are the notes about it? So the account is Duke Power. The username is scotty@mac.com. The password is 123456. The notes might be my account number is such and such and such, and I last paid my bill at such and such a time. So I have that spreadsheet, and it's password protected. Now for me, I keep my password protected Excel spreadsheet in Dropbox. So I can get access to it on all my different computers. Dropbox is for another conversation, but that answers one of the questions that somebody posed up in the chat here. All right, long wind. I'm going to keep moving on. We're going to get to Rebecca, then Renee. Rebecca, what have you got this evening?
Did you get my email that asked how
Yes.
I put new groups
Yes.
in my
Contacts. Yes, I saw that just a little while ago, and you're on my list, and if I can answer it now, I won't answer it on my website, which is great because I'm way behind on email right now, as you were about to see. So here's your contacts, and let me hide some personal information here real quick. So it's very simple to make a new group of contacts. Let me just get into, there we go. All right, so here's my address book or my contacts list. And I want to make a new group, and I want to call this my church group, the people that I want to visit church with. So to do that, I can go up under the word File, I believe it is, and New Group. All right, that's going to appear, and I'm going to name it Church Group. Now, that group has nobody in it. Now I need to go back to my contacts, and in this case I'm going to go to this group, and I can drag over the people that I want to be a part of that group. So that group is now called Church Group. And if all those emails are valid, all those email addresses are valid, then when I create a new email in my mail program, I can just type in the word church and it will automatically fill in. Does that answer your question, Rebecca?
I think it does.
All right.
I didn't go to file. That's what.
Yeah, File, that'll do it. Let's keep moving along. We've got Renee. Thank you for your patience, Renee. You're muted, but if you want to unmute and tell us what is up. Renee's still muted. Maybe she'll come back or he'll come back. Not sure. Let's see. I think I've hit everybody. Myron, are you with us tonight? You got a question or are you just hanging out?
With you, yes, a suggestion rather.
Let's hear it.
I'm in the market for a new iPhone 6. And last weekend, I went to the Apple store on Saturday afternoon.
Which is your first mistake.
Well, that's of course, the line was out the door, and I just thought, wow, there's just no way. Do you recommend, going to the Apple store to get an iPhone, or can you go to, a reseller? Whoever else sells it.
Yeah, absolutely.
AT&T.
Yeah, you can. If you buy, an iPhone's an iPhone, and if you're brave enough to go into Walmart, all they're going to do, and you can buy one at Walmart, they're just going to verify whether or not you qualify for the subsidy. And all of these companies have different ways of doing that. If you walk into the Apple Store has no interest in selling you a different Verizon or AT&T plan. All they're going to do is pull it up. Or who are you with? Verizon, AT, Sprint, or AT&T?
AT&T.
All right.
AT&T.
They're going to pull it up and they go, oh, well, either you qualify for the $199 subsidized price on this particular phone, or you're still in contract. So you could actually do this other way of getting the phone a little bit cheaper, or you could, of course, buy it outright. I know AT&T has two plans. They have the every 18 months get a new phone under a subsidized price, and then they have this other plan where you basically, it's AT&T financing it basically. It's almost the same thing, but you're paying like $45 up front, and then you pay for the phone over the period of time built into the contract. But Walmart's going to have the ability to do that. If you go into the AT&T store, obviously they're going to push you to change your plan around that benefits them. The nice thing about Apple is they don't care what your data plan is.
And the thing is, in the past, when I've gone to Apple, they were just so efficient about setting everything up. And
They are.
I just felt like if I went to somewhere else, that they may not be as efficient setting up the phone.
Well, this brings up a really good point. Anybody that buys a phone, in my opinion, should, before they go down to the store to buy their phone, they should plug their phone up to iTunes and make a backup in iTunes. I am not a big fan of backing up to iCloud. You physically plug it up to iTunes and you make a backup copy of that phone. Now, you go buy your new phone. Don't worry about setting it up in the they're going to make a phone call or whatever at the store, but then you bring it home, you connect your phone to iTunes, and you restore from a backup. Now you have two choices when you make a backup. You can either make a regular backup or an encrypted backup. If you make an encrypted backup, it saves your passwords. Then when you restore the phone, all of your passwords that were for your mail account and your iCloud account, those will just fall back in. But if your passwords were not, if your backup was not encrypted, you'll have to put those back in again.
Okay.
So that's good to know.
Yeah. So just now, one other thing: the encrypted backup does take a little bit longer than a normal backup does. Let's see. I think that's all I had to say. I think that's all I had to say on that. All right, I'm going to open it up.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Beth is on with us on the web, but I don't know that that Beth can hear us. She's using the web viewer. So Beth, if you want to type your question in the little chat area, I'll try to get to it. Otherwise, I'll open it up to anybody that wants to jump in. Loudest voice wins. Who's got a question?
I do, Joanne.
Joanne, take it.
How do I turn off iMessaging in the iMac?
Okay. Turning off iMessage. This can be a privacy concern for people. So I've got iMessage on over here. And that means that if somebody texts me, I can get it not only on my phone, but I can get it on my computer. But that also means that if I'm out and about, anybody that lives in my house could walk by and see my text messages. And maybe I want to hide something, or maybe I just don't want people to see my text messages. So to sign out or to make sure that you're signed out of your text messages, then you need to go into Message. You open it up. Here's my text messaging program. You open that up and you go under the word Messages to Preferences. And when you're in Preferences, you select the account and you sign out. That's Preferences within Messages. It used to be called iMessage. It used to be called iChat. Now it's just called Messages. So once again, you open up the program. You go to Preferences. On the left-hand side, you'll see your account. Select it and sign out. Those text messages will no longer go to that device or that computer. All right?
Okay, and
All right.
that's under the messages.
Yes, you have to open the program Messages first. All right?
Okay, thank you.
All right, who's next?
Got it, Daryl.
All right, Daryl, what do you got?
I can't get my cameras to work now.
Ah, really? All right. You know, Daryl, with your connection, and you usually have a great connection, it sounds like you're on an iPad. Are you connecting through an iPad or are you connected tonight through an iMac?
No, it's through my MacBook Pro.
MacBook Pro. Have you tried to FaceTime anybody yet, Daryl? In other words, can we eliminate that it might be a GoToMeeting problem, or do we need to add on that there are other problems with cameras as well? So, have you tried to FaceTime anybody?
No.
All right. Well, why don't you could probably do that. If you want to send me a FaceTime invitation while we're talking, it'll be a little weird, like we're looking into the past to see the future, but we're in the present. But you can send it to me through your through that FaceTime through your MacBook Pro. I'll try to accept it, and we'll see if your camera is well. Here's the thing, Daryl. You're going to need to sign out of GoToMeeting because GoToMeeting is in control of the camera right now. So why don't you sign out of GoToMeeting, try to FaceTime me, and I'll answer it, and then and we'll see if the camera is. Yeah, you can do it to sales at Mac or my phone number or any one of the email addresses you have probably. All right, while he's doing that, let's jump to, let's see, anybody else want to jump in with a question? It looks like Carl just popped in. Yes, go. Who's this?
Hey, I just want to say this is Myron.
Oh.
In regards to the camera,
Yeah.
I'm on an iPad right now, but
Yeah.
when I was trying to join the meeting, I did get several errors about not being able to access my camera, and I just sort of quit GoToMeeting app,
Yeah.
went back to the Safari, and then eventually it did connect and see my camera.
It could be, as a lot of us know, GoToMeeting is changing versions of the software all the time. If you don't believe me, if you're connected on a Mac and you've used Town Hall several times, if you go into your applications folder, all right, I'm going to connect with Daryl here. If you go into your applications folder, you will see multiple versions. All right, Daryl, I see you there. So any of these old versions of GoToMeeting, you can delete. I'm not hearing you, but that's okay. That's okay, probably because I'm using the microphone for something else. But Daryl, if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Okay, so what this tells us, Daryl, is that there's nothing wrong with and you're connecting from your MacBook Pro right now with FaceTime, is that correct? I can barely hear you. You might have an issue. Second screen, first word, 2 words. It's like, sure, I can't understand you. I'm sorry. Come back and rejoin us in the town hall meeting, and we'll talk about it. All right. All right. So what we just did was we proved that Daryl's camera is fine. There's nothing wrong with the hardware. Most likely, it's something that's going on with GoToMeeting not being able to access that hardware. And it could be that Yosemite and GoToMeeting are having a problem. And GoToMeeting, as I was pointing out, is always updating their software. I just threw away about 5 different versions of GoToMeeting just a minute ago. Carl, I'm not sure if I've gotten to you. Carl, do you have a question this evening? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Carl, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I'm late, but yeah, I can hear you.
Do you have a question, Carl, that you'd like to ask?
Well, yeah, we just got in from being out of town, but several weeks ago, you were talking about when we get these updates, you know, like with the iPhone and then with the iMac, and your counsel had been that we should wait just a bit before we would do all of that. Does that still apply, or can we go ahead, you know, like with the update for the Mac?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, Carl. And I've covered this earlier tonight, but I'm always happy to say it again. Never, ever update the very first day or the first week that something comes out, because here's a little secret. The software designers, the software team that builds, say, iTunes, the latest version of iTunes. Let's say iTunes is version 12.0. They send out version 12.0 to the United States at, say, 3 a.m. in the morning or 2 a.m. in the morning. They don't just put it out at like 7 o'clock in the evening. They put it out at a time when they know that the impact is going to be very minimal, because it's a lot easier for a a million people to find problems than it is the 100 or so people that are beta testing the software. So they send it out to the masses late at night. And what they'll do is they'll go into a third shift. And so the designers or the software engineers will do a third shift at Apple. And they just sit there and they wait for AppleCare to call them and say, hey, we're getting a million calls on the fact that this button doesn't work, for instance. And so what they'll do often is they'll pull the update down, off. Now, if you're one of the suckers that downloaded it right when it came out, then you're kind of stuck with that problem until the engineers solve the problem, and then they put out iTunes 12.0.1, which usually comes out like later that next morning, let's say. They fix that major crisis. And then they will constantly massage this software. They'll take it down and they'll take it up. The software has what are called builds. And the different build of the software, while the number might change, the build might change. So you want to stay away from software right when it's out. The trick is, the problem is it's so tempting. We want to get to Yosemite. We want to download the latest iOS 8. And there have been probably 1,000 or more people that have been beta testing this, but 1,000 beta testers is not nearly as good as 200, 300, 500 million beta testers.
Right.
So it's a lot easier to find problems. So to give you an example here, and I did this earlier tonight, but I'll be happy to talk about it again. If you go into your settings on your phone and you go to General and then you look at About, on my phone, I am on the latest version of the software, 8.1. But if you watch the keynote that Apple did about 2 weeks ago, 8.1 had not been out yet. They were still on 8.0.1 and 8.0.2. And they had gotten a lot of bad press about it having problems. I tell people this, every piece of software has problems. Every single piece of software. It just so happens that they fixed most of the problems, but there are still plenty of problems with 8.1. Nothing is perfect. So there are just less problems. And look at that number, 12B411. What that means is that's the build of 8.1. If I had downloaded it today, let's say, or if I downloaded it 3 days ago, that little number might be slightly different. It might be the build that works for my phone, but not your phone. So it's a massive undertaking to write this software because they're not just writing it once. They're writing it for the iPhone 6 Plus, which is larger. They're writing it for the iPhone 6, which is longer. They're writing it for the 4S, which is smaller. There's so many things that they've got to deal with when they throw this out, and they just sit there and they cross their fingers and they pray that they don't get fired and that they thought of everything that they possibly could have when they send this out. Oftentimes, you'll see your battery life either improve or crash terribly when an update comes out, because a lot of times there will be one of the groups of engineers. Let's say the group that writes the accessibility stuff. There's one team that writes that stuff, and they might have left out a line of code that says quit after they leave. After they go off of this. So now you got accessibility running in the background, and somebody just forgot to close the door when you close the app. Well, how in the world are you going to test all that? There's so many little intricacies. So the answer is always wait. Never update right off the bat. Now, most of us have already because we're just so tempted to jump in there, but don't, Okay?
As a rule of thumb, should we wait several weeks, wait a month? What would you suggest?
Yeah, overall, you wait about a month is great. It depends on the operating system. If you're talking about iOS, the iPhone, then generally you can wait about 2 weeks. Because usually, hey, look, let's be honest, this is what makes the money for Apple. It's not the iMacs, it's this. So this has to be right. So this is what's buttering the bread over there in Cupertino. So they want to make sure that this is right. And a lot of those same engineers get traded back and forth between teams. So 10.10, the Mac operating system, it's not really on the back burner. It's very important. But one of the things that I have found recently, and you guys might notice this too, is that Apple has started to do something they've never done in the past. They have, in the last 6 months to a year, they have started relying on the developers a lot more heavily to do beta testing. They even opened up Yosemite about 2 months ago to the public. Any one of us about 2 months ago could have downloaded a beta version of Yosemite. Apple never did this in the past. So one of the explanations could be that maybe they need some help beta testing this stuff. because the 1,000 or so engineers that were working on Yosemite, maybe they're working on the iOS devices, the iPads, the iPad Airs, the iPad Minis, all these different, variances of iOS. So this is what you could do. If you have, most of us don't, but if you have more than one computer, maybe you have a MacBook Air and you have an iMac. Install it on the one that you don't make your money off of, but never ever install it on the one that you make your money on until you feel 100% certain. Here's a good example. Somebody earlier tonight, Yosemite kills Flip for Mac. I think it was Lion a couple of years ago, 10.7, killed Microsoft Office 2004. So then people have to go out and spend another $150 for Microsoft Office back in those days. VMware, the virtualization software that people run Windows on, that gets killed on certain versions of VMware. VMware 4, I know, gets killed with Yosemite 10.10. So there's all these little things that a new version of the operating system will kill. And the same is true with these apps. You download a new version of the operating system on your phone, and all of a sudden, that great camera app that you downloaded 2 or 3 years ago that the developer no longer develops because he wasn't making any money on it, is no longer working. And there's nothing you can do. It's over. You got that. You say goodbye to that app. All right?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Who wants to jump in? It's a great question. Anybody have?
Well,
All right, Joanne.
normally, in the old system under the Black Apple, we would click on software update. Now, are we
Yes.
clicking on App Store or
Yes.
iTunes Store?
The App Store, that's exactly right. The updates now come from the App Store inside the Mac. Very good question. That's the App Store.
Okay.
And all this does, Joanne, if you go to the Black Apple and you choose, actually it looks like they've taken it out in Yosemite. It looks like it's completely gone. There used to be a little button up here that says check for updates, and all that would do is launch the App Store. All right?
Yeah, that's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. Okay, who's got another question? Anybody else?
Camera,
All right, Daryl, say that again.
no camera.
No camera on the GoToMeeting. Then the next thing I would try is delete that version of GoToMeeting you're on and re-download. And you might check, Daryl, check in your trash. And what you might find in your trash is multiple versions of GoToMeeting, and pull one out. Like I'm going to look in my trash right now. Pull one out that that might work, probably will work. Throw the new one away. Pull the old one out and see if that will solve it.
Okay,
All right.
do that.
All right, give that a try. All right, I'm getting ready to head out. If anybody has another question. All right, well then I'm out for the evening. Thank you for participating. If any of you want to give me some feedback, the way that you can pay me for this evening, if I've been helpful, is you can go to my website and you can go to reviews, and there's a link on the right-hand side to submit a review to Apple and let them know if I have been helpful for you tonight. So that's salesconsulting.com, and it's in the reviews section. And right now my reviews are not posted. Apple's doing something crazy, but you can look on the right-hand side and there is a let Apple know, and you can sign in with your Apple ID and let them know if I was able to help you. All right, thanks so much. I'll post this up onto my website, and we'll see you guys again next Monday. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.